Good spooky evening, everyone. This is Controller Gramps. Welcome to 31 Nights of Horror. Tonight I'll be reviewing my number 19 favorite horror movie. And that movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a 1984 film directed by Wes Craven, who at that time was famous for his work on The Hills Have Eyes and its sequel. Also, The Last House on the Left and Swamp Thing. The movie most notably stars Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson, Johnny Depp in his first movie role as Glenn Lance, and Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. So the general premise of A Nightmare on Elm Street is basically that Fred Krueger was a man that was a child murderer, and at trial he was let off on a technicality. And the parents got together and basically formed a lynch mob and burned him alive. Years later, Freddy returns in the dreams of their children to seek revenge. So I came really close to not adding this movie to my list, even though I did enjoy this movie. And I think that comes down to when I was a kid, I thought the character of Freddy Krueger was very corny and cheesy, and just really didn't interest me at all. About 20 years ago when I was in the Army, I finally sat down with some friends and watched the movie, and I thought it was really good. And after that, I might have watched it another couple times. Maybe the last time I watched it, I think, was probably the mid-2000s or so. And I've always enjoyed it after that first watch. But when I was making my list, I thought, maybe I'll give it another chance, because it's been about 15 years since I've seen this movie. So I pulled out my DVD and gave it a watch. And I was very pleasantly surprised. This is actually a very, very good movie. The kills in this movie are very, very brutal. Especially that first kill with Tina on the ceiling, and the effects used in that scene are fantastic. And one of my favorite things about the movie is how you can actually take things from the dream world and bring them into the real world. I think that's a really fascinating idea, and it definitely comes into play at the end of the movie when Nancy brings Freddy into the real world to basically trap him and to defeat him. Back in the mid-2000s when I saw this for the last time I saw it, I think that the effects put me off a little bit because I was so used to that CGI kind of late 90s horror type CGI, and I was maybe a little bit snobby because of that. So like the really good practical effects, I had kind of moved on from that maybe, but upon watching it recently, I gotta say the effects, the practical effects, really held up really well, and especially the scenes. I love the scenes where Freddy is manipulating something from the dream world into the real world, like the body bag scene where he's dragging the body bag. I think that was done really well, and all around, this movie is really creepy. It actually creeped me the hell out. I watched it it was probably about midnight or so. And it's just a very creepy, unsettling movie. And Freddy is not over the top in this as much as he is in like the later sequels. He's actually you take him pretty seriously. He's a serious threat. So I'm really not going to bother to say much more about this because it's such a well-known movie, and anyone that's subscribed to my channel that is a fan of horror has most likely seen this movie multiple times. So there's not a whole lot that I can add to it except for my own perspective, which I tried to kind of give. But it's a good movie, of course. It's a classic. If you do not own the movie, you can. I'll put a link below in the description where you can order it from Amazon. I have as you saw earlier, I have the whole collection, and it's like a collection set. It's pretty cheap. I'll put the link to that. And yeah, everyone, I do appreciate you watching, and sorry this is so short, but like I said, I don't want to look foolish because I don't know a lot of details about this movie, like the behind the scenes stuff, and I'm not going to really be able to add anything extra. All I can really say is that I really like this movie, and it definitely deserves a spot on my list, and 19 is about where I would probably put it at this time. So I appreciate you watching, everyone, and join me tomorrow night for my number 18. I'm going to be doing a much better review of that, and for now, keep it sleazy.